In this Northern Brewer video, Pints with Pros, as we put some festive twists on one of our most popular seasonal beer kits, Superior Christmas Ale. We get pro tips from Great Lakes Brewing Company on 3 homebrew variants, including an Imperial Christmas Ale, Maple Bourbon Barrel Christmas Ale, and a spicy hot pepper Christmas Ale. Before we get into it, if you appreciate conversations with craft beer professionals about making better beer or just more fun beer, please like this video, subscribe to Northern Brewer's YouTube channel, and share this video with all the brewers on your nice list. What's going on, everybody? I'm Chip Walton. I'm here in Northern Brewer HQ. I'm happy to be joined by my buddy, Michael Williams.
What's up, brother? Good to see you again.
Yeah, brand
that time of year we're chatting. It must be Christmas sale season.
Oh, man. I feel like we only see each other at Christmas. Oh.
It's just like it's coming home for the holidays. It's great.
Michael is the brand coordinator and the unself-proclaimed beer professor.
They call me it. I didn't do it.
We've gotten together multiple years over this project. We're talking Superior Christmas Ale, which is the Northern Brewer homebrew recipe kit, greatly inspired by the quintessential Great Lakes Christmas Ale brewed by Great Lakes in awesome Cleveland, Ohio. Before we talk about putting tweaks and modifications on the Superior Christmas Ale, for the uninitiated, real quick, Michael, kind of tell us about the rock star seasonal beer that is Great Lakes Christmas Ale, and in particular, the very unique ingredients that people just totally gravitate towards and can't wait for.
Yeah, man. For those maybe the few of you out there who have not heard of our Christmas Ale before, it is, man, for us at Great Lakes, it's our most beloved beer. But it's not just us. It's kind of like people throughout the entire Midwest and even beyond. This is kind of like what many consider to be the defining example of the winter seasonal beer or spiced holiday ale, whatever you want to call it. So it's been brewed since 1992. So we just celebrated 30 years of Christmas Ale last year. And it has become actually our #1 selling beer overall, which is, it's just a testament to, not to talk sales speak, that's just a testament to how much people love this beer. And there are great reasons for that. I mean, the holidays, I'm sitting in front of our little Christmas tree right here. So obviously we go all in here. People in Northeast Ohio are even more obsessed with Christmas than maybe people in other areas, but it's about the beer, right? It's really about the beer itself. And there's something about this beer that really just evokes the spirit of the holidays in ways that other beers just aren't able to do for whatever reason. Or there are other beers that do it, but they're very inspired by ours, which is great. We're honored by that. So we use, in the production brewery right across the street from me here in Cleveland, we brew 75 barrel batches, and we are loading up each of those batches with a 55-gallon drum of honey. And we're using real deal honey. It's not, diluted, watered down by sugar or anything like that. Certified real honey. That gets pumped in through the runoff tank as we're sending over. So it's not too much of a pain for the guys over there. But then we use 20 pounds each of whole cinnamon sticks and fresh cut ginger in every single batch of this beer. That is a pain in the butt for the guys over there, but it's worth it. It smells amazing over there. As we've talked about before, we kind of use a maybe unusual technique, especially for homebrewers out there, where we do a full boil of all those spices. So yet the finished beer ends up being with just perfect balance at 7.5 ABV. So not too high. It stays super drinkable, especially with that honey in there to kind of lighten the body just a touch. But it's not too low either. So it really invokes the spirit of the holidays. And then those spices come together perfectly to just really evoke you to, gingerbread cookies and grandma's house and all that kind of thing. So that's why that beer is really blown up to be the phenomenon that it is.
Okay. So it's funny that you mentioned it's 7.5. It's no slouch, but it's not like it's 10%, because that is the first thing that we thought of.
I know, right?
Whenever you got a variant, it's like the easiest lift is like, well, how do you imperialize this beer?
Right.
And talk about a fireside holiday sipper that this could become. So our idea was Imperial Christmas Ale, bump it up to about 10% by adding either on the all grain version, 3 pounds of the raw 2-row base malt or 2 additional pounds of the Golden Light DME. For the extract version, we're also suggesting another pound of the honey. All the honey goes in at flame out, as well as an extra ounce of hops, extra ounce of Cascade to go in for that 60-minute bittering addition, really just to help that IBU and that bitterness to gravity ratio stay in check. So we're still looking at under 40 IBUs, I think, even at 10%. Yeah, now you're gonna have a 10% beer. Have y'all ever done anything kind of like that? Or what is your personal think? Like, I should be transparent. We have not test brewed these, but we know from experience that these are things that should work and will work. What is your thought on Christmas Ale plus 2.5 points of ABV?
Well, first off, someone who I was a tour guide here for a number of years, and I served in our pub, and one of the number one things you hear all the time about Christmas Ale is, oh, the ABV used to be higher and stuff. And like, I don't know, maybe our consistency wasn't that great in 92 or something like that. I wasn't there. I was 5, right? But it's ironic because that's exactly what people say. I'm sure it's a tolerance thing. When you were drinking nothing but Christmas Ale and light lager in the early 90s, then it hit you a little differently than today, right? So, but beers like this are meant to be higher ABV. It's such a festive time of year, and in part we consume alcohol for the wonderful flavors and all that, but there's also the effect of festivity that the beverages convey. So it was just a natural move to try a higher ABV version, especially because it's already malt forward beer. So adding a little extra beefy malt character there made a ton of sense. I'm a big barley wine guy. And this is kind of trending towards, if you were to take away the spices, we'd basically be talking about a barley wine.
Yeah.
We're keeping that drinkability up, which of course is absolutely terrifying to think about, considering Christmas Ale already kind of, it makes people very excited, we'll say. So, but the 10% ABV,
yeah, I
think that's a really good sweet spot for an imperialized version. But then keeping that, and the honey keeps it drinkable, right? So you're able to have, it's still a sipper. It's 10%.
It's drying out as much as something with that much malt can be dried out.
Exactly. It's actually gonna keep it in check, right? It's not gonna be overly cloying where, oh my goodness, you can barely get through a 12-ounce bottle. But then keeping those spices at the same level, that's gonna keep, if you're not careful, especially if you're brewing the regular version of Christmas Ale like we do it, we're doing full boil, you got to be careful to make sure you're not extracting too much tannic quality and you're creating some astringency and all that, right? So that's why we wanted to kind of keep those spices at the same level. So you're still going to get them.
One last note, the recommended London Ale yeast strain for this beer, probably going to be getting close to getting maxed out on its alcohol tolerance. So treat it well, make a starter, oxygenate, give it all the support it needs.
Sing and dance, all those things, right?
So our second variant idea, Maple Bourbon Barrel Christmas Ale. This takes a cue directly from Michael and the brew crew and everyone at Great Lakes, their barrel-aged Christmas Ale. Tell me about the production timeline for the barrel-aged version as it relates to the regular bottled and canned and draft, and then also just any kind of nerdy fun stuff people might appreciate about these bourbon barrels.
BA Christmas, we've been doing, and we did that in the pub, small batch for a while, but we started doing production runs of that back in 2015, 2016. And it's become a wider release for us. It used to be just out of the gift shop here in Ohio City in Cleveland. So we make a good amount of it, which means we're doing full production runs of base Christmas Ale. It's the same recipe. We are starting to develop, or I should say redevelop a wider barrel age program where we're brewing beers specifically to go into barrels, not even being released on the side. But for Christmas, it's the same Christmas Ale you know and love. We are brewing basically, so thinking back on timeline, we canned it in mid-October. It was in barrels for 7.5 months or so. So that means we're going back to earlier this year, probably brewing it. I'm not exactly sure when, sometime maybe late December, early January, kind of the end of, actually technically after, of course, the production run of regular Christmas Ale, since actually the guys probably just brewed that the last batches this week, mid-November when we're recording. So it's a fresh batch. It's regular 7.5 regular spices, goes straight into a mix of bourbon barrels, mid-February this year. The barrel program director likes to do at least half a year, of course, to extract enough of those woody, oaky, vanilla type flavors. But for a beer like Christmas Ale that's also so focused on the spice character, like we can't put BA Christmas out there and then oxidation's totally wiped out all your cinnamon and ginger, right? So we do intentionally a shorter barrel time for BA Christmas so we don't lose too much of that. And we will top up too with fresh to taste so that we're getting all the character that you want from the barrel while also getting the character of the spices that people expect in the base beer. We've been going with a mix basically from a broker. So he had Buffalo Trace, Wild Turkey, Heaven Hill, Four Roses, all that stuff kind of blended all in. We're talking, your typical casks, big old racks in our warehouse down in Strongsville, Ohio, temperature controlled in the regular 38 degree. He likes to keep it a little bit cooler just because BA Christmas it's a lower ABV beer that's sitting in barrels for a long time. So keeping it at that lower temp will help kind of keep everything a little bit more controlled during the aging process.
Obviously, that's some news you can use if you actually have a barrel as far as that timeline. For people that don't, which is probably more of us than not, we were thinking we would point people to the maple bourbon barrel oak chips that we sell. These are busted up from the actual barrel, so they have the spirit already in it. So you don't have to soak like you would a chip or a cube. This comes pre-soaked, providing flavors, aromas of maple syrup, bourbon, oak. This could also lead to some caramel flavors, brown sugar, vanilla. And when I told you this idea, you were like, cinnamon toast crunch in a
cinnamon
glass,
toast crunch,
man.
Yep. That's what it is. It's great. I loved it.
Talk about just any input you got on that kind of flavor, what that maple bourbon might do. It's a little different than your regular bourbon, but
yeah. Well, it's another exciting. That's part of the beauty of home brewing, right? It's like you can go out and get cans of our regular bourbon barrel aged version. So if you're doing it at home, why not go the next level? And by the way, giving me some ideas to hand off to the barrel master right now. I don't know why I haven't thought of this yet, but maybe a maple bourbon barrel Christmas Ale, a short run in the pub would be a good idea. For you all out there, I mean, that's the whole point of homebrewing is experimenting and pushing the boundaries. Why not infuse it with maple bourbon, especially since it just works so well on top of the base beer. It's like your pancakes on Christmas morning, you know what I mean, before you go open the presents. So it just makes sense.
For the sake of time for usage, I'll put the usage that we're suggesting for this in the blog article listed in the video description, and we can for those chips. We'll move right on to our third idea, spicy Christmas ale or hot pepper Christmas ale. I was thinking two things here. Like there's already this subtle to almost not so subtle heat from that long boiled ginger root in the brew. But I was also kind of thinking of Mexican hot chocolate, our other kit that's really popular around this time of year, but this isn't nearly that roasty and chocolatey. I was like, oh, but I think this would work. So we were like, let's put in some real heat. We've got Chile de Arbol peppers here at Northern Brewer. These we have found to be a little bit more toasty, roasty, slightly fruity, but hella hot, straight up hot. When we were test brewing Mexican hot chocolate, a couple of our cohorts had not read the directions to pull the seeds out. At least to start. You can add them back in if you want. So the couple of test batches we ran on this were super spicy. So I assume it'll do the same thing to the Christmas ale. Dried chipotle peppers, another thing that we have. This is a smokier flavor, almost chocolatey, tobacco, dark fruit, kind of plum, and fig. So two very different attempts you could make with the hot peppers, or maybe even blend them. But from your advanced Cicerone knowledge and all of your flavor education, both for beer and food in beer, beer ingredients and food ingredients and beer, what do you kind of think of this interplay of heat, little alcohol, and the other more warming holiday spices.
Yeah, it's great. So like when we think of beer and food flavor interactions, one of the big things that is part of the reason why, one, I think the ginger in the beer works in the first place because it does contribute a little bit of heat if you're paying attention. But then chili peppers in a malty beer, and you kind of see that with other examples of pepper beers too. They tend to be malt forward beers, in part because we're obviously looking for some heat, like that's why we're adding the peppers and all that, but we don't want it to get, as hopefully with all things beer brewing, we don't want it to get out of balance where it's not palatable and not drinkable in any way. And malt is one of, malt flavors and residual sugars and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty much element number one that you want in order to help quell the heat a little bit, not too much because you still want to taste it, but that keeps the heat from getting out of control. So that's why, a pepper addition to a beer like Christmas Ale, it's a complex malty beer that it's going to hold up to that spice character really, really well.
I don't think this beer wants mint. I think this beer wants warm heat, whether that warmth is through booze, additional spicing, right. A barrel, like our variant with the barrel. I'm thinking, I think we've talked about this before. I think of flavors as colors a lot, and I don't think you want blue and green in this beer. I think you want orange, brown, warming flavors. Totally.
I love it. I love thinking in terms of colors.
Yeah, I've turned a couple of people onto it. It's kind of cool.
Oh yeah,
a couple of pros like, I should start like using this to describe things. Anyway, not patting myself on the back too hard.
There you go. You got it, man. Yeah.
But for the hot pepper version, again, for the sake of time, I'll link our process suggestions in the blog below. Spoiler alert: I would not boil these. This is definitely like a secondary tincture addition. Again, see the Northern Brewer article included in this video's description for links to both the extract and all grain versions of Superior Christmas Ale, plus all the yummy, eccentric bonus ingredients we talked about in this video. I hope people, buy 2 kits and make one twisted and one standard and do a side-by-side.
You got to let us know. Let us know how those things go, too. Get some feedback.
Yeah, brew a variant and go get a 6-pack. Take some of the work out of it. Go get you a 6 or 12-pack of Great Lakes and then brew one of these variants in your house. Put them against each other. And more importantly, if you have any riff on a Christmas ale, a Northeastern Ohio-style holiday ale.
That's right.
And what you would do to modify it, please put that below. If you've ever done something like this, tell us what does and doesn't work. Michael, once again, it's been a pleasure. I want to say to you and yours, Merry Christmas, Ale.
Merry Christmas, Ale, Chip. We appreciate it, man. Thanks for having us on once again. It's always a good time. Enjoy the holidays, everybody.